Hello, glad to see you on my channel. I really value it. And today I want to share with you a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story that will come as a total shock to everybody. It is a really amazing story. So enjoy watching it. Mom, you realize this is not normal, right? Since the day my father died, our family has been going through some kind of cataclysm every now and then. I don't even know what tomorrow will bring. Sometimes it's scary to wake up in the morning. Leslie, Olivia's daughter, it's just a coincidence. I agree that it's unpleasant and even frightening. But I think you're exaggerating a little. No, Mom. You just don't see the connection. I saw it a long time ago. And I think it all started with that phone call from that strange woman. Remember? What woman? You mean Anna? Olivia was surprised. Yes, her. 6 months ago, they had indeed received a phone call from a woman who turned out to be the ex-lover of Peter, the father of the family. Olivia had answered her husband's phone then. He was in the shower. Someone called and she answered it on automatic. They had no taboo on each other's phones. Where would they be? The couple had been in love for over 30 years. And suddenly, a call from the past. Good evening. Can I speak to Peter? Anna asked when she heard a woman's voice on the phone. Good evening. He's a little busy. I'll tell him to call back when he's free. Her husband often received calls from clients on his private phone, although not usually at this late hour. Would you be sure to tell him? Of course. Can I call you back on this number? Yes, please. When Peter came out of the bathroom, Olivia immediately told him about the call. He was overheating in the bathtub, didn't want to pick up the phone with wet hands, and asked his wife to dial that woman and put it on speaker. She was sitting next to him and heard everything. Hello, Peter, Anna said. Hello, do I know you? He was surprised. We knew each other years ago. My name is Anna. Does that name mean anything to you? Peter was silent for a second. At that moment, he even regretted a little that his wife was sitting next to him and could hear everything. She's talking. Anna, what did you want? It's been years. 32 years, you're right. It's been a long time. Anna, did you want something? He asked again. Yes, I want to ask you for help. And how can I help? He asked, but the tension in his voice was palpable. I need money. Can I know the reason for your request? Is your wife around? Maybe she shouldn't know about everything. Anna guessed. I have no secrets from Olivia, and she knows about your daughter. At that moment, Olivia looked at her husband questioningly. No, she didn't know that he had another daughter. They had 3 children in their marriage, 2 sons and a daughter, but this was the first time she had heard about this other child. Now she had, he replied and gestured to his wife to be silent. Anyway, my Elizabeth is in the hospital. She needs an expensive operation, otherwise she will die. I don't have that kind of money. Can you help me? How much are we talking about? I need 3 million. She needs that money, not me. We've never asked you for anything all our lives. But now I just don't know what to do. When Peter heard the amount, he tensed up. It was a lot of money. He simply didn't have that much, even if he added up all the money in his accounts. He and his wife had taken out a loan to build a house in the country where they planned to grow old. Now at the stage of construction, it is difficult to sell it in a short time. And where else to take money, he just did not imagine. I don't have that much. I can raise $500,000 in a couple days. It's not enough. Peter, our daughter is dying. I know you never loved me. I know that I chose to keep this baby. I know I've denied you any chance to see her, but understand our daughter is dying. I need your help. Anna, I understand. I'm sorry, but money doesn't grow on trees. It takes time to get it. I'll try, but I can't promise anything. When do you have to operate? Yesterday, Anna replied. He could hear the tears in her answer. Why didn't you call earlier? He asked. Anna could not admit to him that her pride had prevented her from doing so earlier. She kept hoping that somehow things would get better, but no miracle happened. And now, if this operation isn't done in the next few days, their Elizabeth will die. And with her, Anna will lose the meaning of her life. Peter, will you help me? I'll try. I just need a little time. I'll see what I can do. I'll call you back, but probably tomorrow, okay? Okay, Anna just said and hung up. Peter couldn't take his eyes off the phone and look at his wife. He realized that a storm was about to break out. He should have told Olivia about Elizabeth, but he didn't. Not because he was ashamed of anything. He didn't want to be seen as a jerk. He'd met Anna years ago at some youth party. He was bored, and she was there for him. A one-night stand with no strings attached caused the birth of a child. Anna didn't hide it. As soon as she found out she was pregnant, she tracked him down and confessed. They were both very young. He suggested what he thought was the only right thing to do. To have an abortion, not get married. There was no love, no friendship. They didn't even know each other. It's clear that neither he nor she were happy that evening. But what happened was what happened. When Anna heard about the abortion, she was angry. She didn't want to do it. Then she told Peter in her heart to fuck off. They saw each other a year later by chance. She was walking down the street with Peter, and he was in a hurry to get home. Seeing her, Peter approached, but she wouldn't even let him look in the stroller. Only said, "That's my baby. You have nothing to do with her." "Her? Is it a girl?" "Yes, it's a girl. I named her Elizabeth, and that's the last time we'll talk about her. Disappear and never come into my life again. Or better yet, leave town. I'll be leaving soon enough. But, Anna, I wish I could help you in some way. It's going to be hard for you on your own, do you understand? I don't need anything from you. I'll manage on my own. Goodbye." There was no resentment or anger in her voice, only a blind certainty that she didn't need him. And neither did she need his money. Peter resigned himself to it. After all, he couldn't force her, though he thought it was silly to be so stubborn. Couldn't she at least file for alimony? He had a feeling she'd change her mind sooner or later. A couple weeks later, he moved to another city where he was offered a job. He met his Olivia. A year later, they were married, and then life went on as usual. And although he occasionally remembered Anna and her daughter, but did not tell anyone about it, as if there was no such shameful piece in his biography. And now Anna calls, after dozens of years, and asks for help. He really wanted to help her, but first he had to explain himself to his wife. "Olivia, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," Peter said, working up the courage to speak. He looked into her eyes, but he saw no hatred or contempt as he had feared, only incomprehension. "Peter, you've had a daughter all these years and you've had no contact with her? When Elizabeth was little, Anna wouldn't let me. And when she grew up, she didn't want to. What could I do?" "What makes you think she didn't want to?" "She said so herself. I tracked her down on social media once. I texted her, asked her to meet me. She was 20 years old at the time. She said she'd lived her whole life without a father and she didn't need one. I tried to convince her, but she wouldn't listen to me, and then she blocked me. And you didn't say a word the whole time." Olivia definitely looked upset, but Peter wasn't sure what that had to do with anything. "Are you mad?" "Yes, I am." "Can I ask why?" "'Cause you lied to me." "Olivia, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you." "What would have changed if you had known?" "I just would have known." "Okay, what do you think you're gonna do?" my wife asked. "I'm gonna try to get the money." "Good." They both got on their phones and started calling people they knew who could lend money. After 3 hours, it became clear that this was not enough. Everyone had their own life and their own expenses. They could borrow no more than $1 million from different people. And from different people, they could get another $500,000 out of their own, albeit with difficulty. But where could they get another $1.5 million? Peter called Anna back in the morning to tell her about everything. But she didn't answer. She called in the evening. "Anna, I can bring 1.5 million, he said. Not anymore, Anna replied in a hollow voice. What do you mean you don't need it? What's wrong? Not anymore. You're late. I hate you. Explain yourself. What happened? Elizabeth died this morning. She didn't wait for the operation. You're too late. Peter went cold inside when he heard her, but what he said next frankly scared him. I heard you have 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter. Well, I curse you and your whole family. My Elizabeth is gone, and today I'm gone. And remember, in the last seconds of my life, I will wish death upon you and all your loved one. I curse you. May your lineage be cut off. May no one with your blood ever see the light of the sun again. Farewell. And she passed out. Olivia sat beside her and saw her husband's face twitch at what he'd heard. It was as if they both felt the curse that had been said in the grief of their loss weigh on their shoulders, as if they could feel its weight. Their youngest daughter, Leslie, stood in the doorway. She understood nothing, but heard the end of the conversation. With a frightened look at her parents, she asked, "What was that?" Olivia tried to calm her daughter down. Told her about Elizabeth and her mother. What was the point now of hiding something? Leslie listened and couldn't believe her ears. Not that she felt love, sadness, or sympathy for her dead sister or her mother, for she did not know them at all, but she was frightened. One does not throw such words, only answered the daughter. They are just words, her mother told her. Don't worry. But Leslie did. She was the kind of girl who believed in curses and spells and the supernatural. She didn't want to think that their whole family was cursed now, and especially since the curse words had been spoken on the very day this Elizabeth had passed away. Her father wouldn't admit it either, but he was uncomfortable with everything he'd heard from Anna, and voice was full of hatred. She seemed mad. 2 months later, Peter died. He was in good health despite his age, 57. And suddenly he had a heart attack. He had never had a heart complaint before, and then he just had a stroke while he was at work. While Olivia grieved the loss of her husband, Leslie became even more afraid of that curse. She felt like it was all connected, but she had no idea what to do next. Just a month later, an accident happened to her older brother, Paul. He survived, but was seriously injured. He'd been in an accident while hauling another load. Paul worked as a trucker, always carefully drove these huge trucks, and then suddenly flew off the road at Fort IH. How come? He broke an arm and a leg, hit his head, but at least he was alive. Neither he nor his wife Julianne knew anything about Anna and her curse. Olivia asked her daughter not to tell anyone anything so as not to scare them. Another month passed when Alex's second brother's wife miscarried. She was 5 months pregnant when it all happened. The doctors were very surprised because there was no sign of anything like that before. Alex was very upset, but he tried not to be discouraged for his wife's sake. But Leslie thought it was too strange. It was as if a fierce curse was gradually gaining strength. When a few weeks later she found out she was pregnant, Leslie tensed up even more. 2 years ago she had gotten married. She and her husband had been planning to have children, so they had been unprotected for many months, even though nothing had worked. And now she's finally pregnant. It would seem that she should be happy. But no, she became terribly afraid. She wanted this child to be born alive and healthy, but there was little confidence in this. Since the death of his father in their lives really happened a lot of strange things. The soil under the house, which was being built outside of town, suddenly began to turn into a swamp. Foundation floated. The contractor didn't understand how that could happen. Alex was in the hospital a couple of times with serious poisoning. Leslie herself, not so long ago, got into a situation that would not wish the enemy. She was calling the elevator to go to work. The elevator doors opened and she almost stepped into the void. The doors opened, but the elevator was not there. She wondered how she managed not to fall down the shaft. She was scared out of her wits. That's when she went to her mother to talk to her, but Olivia still didn't believe in the curse. What do you suggest? Olivia asked, hearing her daughter's speculation. I don't know. Let's find her. Let her take it back. And where will you look for her? We don't know her address, just her last name. And a phone number. That's enough. I think we should try. Mom, she cursed Dad's whole family. That includes me and my brothers, and my unborn child. What if it's true, Leslie? I don't believe these things. Mom, Dad was a healthy man, and suddenly he's dead. Insisted her daughter. These things happen. Yes, it's very sad, but this Anna has nothing to do with it. And it seems to me that very much to do with it, Leslie persisted. Okay, if you don't want to, I'll find her myself. I'll find her and make her take back all her curses. I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking around corners. I don't want to worry about my brothers and their kids. I don't want to worry about my child. I have to do this. Leslie, if you can track her down, we'll go there together, okay? I don't want you to do anything stupid. Okay, promised her daughter. But for some reason it seemed to her that her mom would only get in the way on this trip. Back home, Leslie asked her husband for a favor. Benedict, can you ask Ryan to look for someone? It's very important. She had already told him about the curse and the strange phone call. Benedict listened to her, supported her, though in his heart he did not share her fears. He, like his mother-in-law, thought that all this was nothing, but at the same time he knew that his wife was incredibly stubborn when something gets into her head. Benedict had seen with what enthusiasm Leslie watched Battle of the Psychics. Even though she'd said many times that she didn't believe it was true, she still enjoyed it. Perhaps it was because in her heart she believed that there were other worlds and life after death and curses, even though she had never seen the proof of it in person before. Who do you need to find? He asked. That woman, Anna. But why? I want to go and talk to her. It seems to me that all this is no accident. And what will you say to her? Benedict, I'll decide when the time comes. For now, I just need to find her. Can you help me? His friend Ryan was an investigator. He was supposed to be able to help in this matter, but Benedict couldn't be sure. I'll ask, but no promises. Thank you for that, Leslie said hopefully, and kissed her husband on the cheek, wincing at the stubble of 2 days' unshavenness. A couple of days later, Benedict pleased her when he told her that he had managed to get the woman's address. What are you going to do next? I'll go to see her first thing tomorrow morning. Alone? Mom wanted to come with me, but I don't want to take her. Then I'll go with you, okay? My husband offered. Not that he wanted to travel, but Benedict knew that Leslie was not a good driver. She had miraculously managed to get her license, but she was always in small accidents, so he was afraid to let her go alone. Cool. You'll be the navigator, she said cheerfully. No, my dear, the navigator will be you, replied her husband sternly. In the morning, they woke up early and drove to another city, which was 400 kilometers from their home. They had a long way to go, so they stocked up on food and water so they wouldn't starve on the way. Lately, Leslie had developed an unhealthy appetite, but she was sure that it was because she was pregnant. They arrived at Anna's house at 3:30. Going up to the second floor, they immediately saw the apartment with the number 25. Leslie rang the bell, but it didn't seem to work. She knocked on the beautiful oak door once, then again, but no one opened it. She certainly wasn't going to leave, so she knocked even louder until the neighbor from the apartment across the hall opened the door. Why are you making so much noise? A woman in her 60s asked. Oh, hello. Sorry if we disturbed you, replied Leslie. We need a woman from this apartment. Her name is Anna. We're her distant relatives. Relatives, you guys are late. Anna's dead. Anna's dead. May she rest in peace. Leslie didn't expect that. It seemed to her that this woman was still praying and cursing her father at night. The news of Anna's death frightened her even more. When did she die? Benedict asked. Yes, on the same day as Elizabeth. They were buried together, the same day. And how did she die? Leslie inquired gently. That's the worst part. She killed herself. She hanged herself in the Sim apartment. What a horror. I can't imagine living next door to her now. I couldn't cope with losing my daughter. I didn't want to live without her, wailed the neighbor. Leslie felt a chill inside when she imagined how Anna had said all those words on that terrible day, and then took her own life. And her mom didn't believe in curses. Surely none of this was a coincidence. What a pity, just said the girl. If you want to say goodbye to them, I can tell you where they are buried, the woman offered. Yes, please write us how to find them. And also, do you by any chance have a photo of Elizabeth and Anna? Just in case, Leslie asked. There is one, but it's very old. Anna is still very young, and Elizabeth is only 5 years old. Would that work? I don't know, but I'd be grateful if you could show it to me. The woman took out that photo and also scribbled on a piece of paper where in the cemetery are the graves of their alleged relatives. Why supposedly? In fact, Elizabeth was Leslie's paternal sister. Benedict had taken the photo on his phone. The neighbor wanted to keep it as a souvenir. They took the sheet, thanked her for everything, and said goodbye. When they got into the car, Benedict looked a little worried. Now it seems to me that you and I have watched horror movies in our time. Benedict, tell me, please, how do you think, if so many movies are made and books are written about the afterlife, lost souls and other passions, cannot all this be based at least partially on some reality? And if it could be, when you add up all the facts, couldn't this curse be the cause of Dad's death and the other misfortunes that have happened over the last few months? Look, when you put it like that, it may seem logical. But when you think about it, if it could actually be true, it's scary to live. You're telling me this. Try putting one foot down an elevator shaft and the other trying to hold on so you don't fall. And all in heels. Imagining that situation, Benedict frowned. Leslie noticed the twitch in his eye. It wasn't the most pleasant of sensations. No argument there. Yeah, maybe you're right about something. Well, shall we go home then? Then we'll try to figure out what to do next. Yeah, let's go, Leslie agreed. You want to drive? No, 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 no. I'm not letting you drive until we get rid of all this. He started the car and pressed the gas pedal. The navigator took them on a slightly different route this time. It found a shorter road. It was starting to get dark outside when they passed a small town. The people in the town seemed lively. It was as if they were in a hurry to get somewhere. Soon Benedict and Leslie realized what was wrong. After a few hundred meters, the road was blocked. In the middle of it were special vehicles and signs indicating a detour. They'd have to take a long detour to get around it. What do you think is going on there? Leslie asked curiously. I have no idea. We will not get home until morning. And let's go and see, she suggested. We'll see if it won't be long. She was drawn to the crowd, but she could not understand why. You won't calm down, will you? Benedict asked tiredly. Please, just for 5 minutes. Shall we go? His wife urged him. Okay, just 5 minutes. Leslie got out of the car and walked toward the crowd of people. Everyone was staring and yelling, but it was hard to make out the words. What's going on out there? She asked an elderly woman standing a little farther away. They're making a movie, she said calmly. A movie? You, how interesting. Leslie rejoiced like a little girl. Nothing interesting. It's garbage. And about what? The girl persisted. About witches, answered the stranger without looking at her. Why nonsense? I think it's very interesting. They don't know anything about them. They have no idea who they are, Aubrey replied tiredly and finally looked her straight in the eye. Her expression turned from tired to concerned in a second. My name is Aubrey. Come with me, beautiful maiden. There was a lantern nearby, and the woman dragged Leslie by the arm and led her to a place where she could get a better look at her. You're in trouble, said Aubrey. You know it, she guessed from her frightened look. I know, but where do you come from? I know a lot of things. I've been around a long time. What am I to do about this trouble? I won't tell you right away. You have to think about it, consider everything. Is it your husband? She asked in the affirmative. Yes, my Benedict. Let you and Benedict drop the old aunt to the house. I will give you tea, and at the same time we will think what can be done with your trouble. It seemed to Leslie as if fate itself had thrown them into this town to meet this Aubrey. She had a ghostly hope that this woman could really help her. She seemed to forget her hunger and fatigue for a second, as if the very thought had energized her. Of course, let's go. Agreed. Do you live far away? No, about 15 minutes away. I'll show you, said Aubrey, walking to the car. Hello, Benedict, she said to her husband, and then just got into the back seat. Benedict looked at his wife in surprise but did not object. This day was beginning to seem even stranger to him. All the way there, they hardly spoke at all. Leslie listened to the song playing softly on the radio, and she didn't notice that she was falling asleep. Benedict noticed that his wife had dozed off a little, but he did not disturb her. He looked at her and wondered how cute it was that she was drooling on his jacket when she woke up abruptly and jerked in surprise. What is it? He asked. I had a bad dream. Leslie answered, frightened, and was about to tell him when she heard Aubrey's voice. Don't tell me about the dream. Don't. It's too bad. Don't make fate angry, she asked sternly. Leslie blinked in surprise, but realized that the woman was right. She dreamed that she was in the maternity hospital, took her newborn son in her arms, looked at him with adoration, and suddenly began to strangle him, not knowing why she was doing it, but could not stop. Maybe we really shouldn't talk about that kind of thing. A couple minutes later, they pulled up to Aubrey's house. The women tied up the dog running around the yard and invited the guests inside. A fat ginger cat chased after her, probably begging for food. She made herbal tea for them and put 3 mugs on the table, took out a pack of cookies from the dresser and offered them to her guests. Leslie happily pounced on the treats. They had long ago finished the food they had prepared for the road, and they hadn't stopped at the store. They were in a hurry to get home. To be exact, they stopped once, but Leslie didn't like anything there, so they drove on. Did you finish your drink? Aubrey asked when she saw that her mug was almost empty. Yes, this tea is so good. What's in it? It's herbs and cranberries. Give me the mug. The girl obediently handed her the mug. The woman frowned and looked at it for a few minutes, then asked again, Give me your hand. Leslie thought that now Aubrey would start reading the lines on her hand like a gypsy, but no. The woman took her palm in her hand, closed her eyes, and fell silent, shaking her head from side to side. Pregnant, too, she said suddenly, and Benedict looked at his wife in surprise. A stranger could not have guessed. The term was still very young. His wife's body had not changed at all. Aubrey was silent for a few more minutes and then opened her eyes. You didn't know her, which is a shame. Perhaps if she had gotten to know you and your brothers, but didn't throw those words around. A chill ran down Leslie's spine, and Benedict's hair stirred in the back of his neck at her words. But the woman continued, I pity my father. He would have lived longer. He was destined to live to old age, to see grandchildren. The couple tensed even more, but remained silent, staring at the woman. Tell your brother not to drink. He's not well now, but his arm and leg will heal, and if he starts drinking, he'll soon follow his father. Suddenly, Leslie couldn't take it anymore. Aubrey, what can we do? Isn't there something we can do? There has to be something, Aubrey said, sure. And it better not take too long. Will you help us? Benedict asked, a little surprised. Yes, of course I will. Since you've come in my way, I can't help you. You will have a son. Benedict could hardly keep back the tears of joy that came to his eyes when he heard about the son. And Leslie was even more frightened. for in her recent dream she had also seen a son. She knew in her heart that she would never harm her child, but now she could not be sure of anything. Too many strange things had happened that day. And what should be done? The girl asked. Aubrey thought for a moment, then answered, I need to get ready. You come to me in 3 days. I'll get everything ready and we'll go. Go where? Where to? To her grave, Aubrey answered, as if it were a matter of course, and then suddenly said, Let your father go. What does that mean? Leslie didn't understand. Let your father go. His soul can't leave. You're holding him. Let him go. What do you mean, I'm holding him? You cry at night when no one hears you. You don't show it, but you cry a lot. He's standing behind you with his hand on your shoulder, trying to calm you down, and he can't get away. At that moment, Leslie suddenly burst into tears. She didn't know how to explain it, but after her father's death, she often felt his presence around her. She thought her mind was just clouded with grief, but no. At the thought of her father standing behind her, she felt a kind of childlike joy mixed with fear at the same time. No, it wasn't her father's soul she feared, but the fact that it was holding her. How do I let go? Stop crying. Go to his grave, say goodbye, and don't cry anymore. Thank him for everything he did for you. Pray for him and say goodbye. Let the wretched man go. Let him go in peace. Go tomorrow and go. All right, Leslie said meekly. All right, you go already. You've got a long drive ahead of you. You'll be home by nightfall, Aubrey said nonchalantly as she led her guests away. If your mother asks to go with you, don't take her. Leslie did not understand anything, but nodded. The couple drove in silence for half an hour. Each was thinking of his own, but about the same thing when Benedict suddenly asked, What did you dream? Leslie looked sadly at her husband and opened her mouth to tell, but suddenly remembered the warnings of their new acquaintance. Sorry, I will not tell. Bad dream, she replied. Leslie, what was all that just now? I don't know, but Benedict, I think she can help us. I believe her, but it doesn't work that way, he insisted. It doesn't happen, I agree, but how did she know? She didn't say anything at all. Yeah, nothing at all. About her father, about her brother, about that Anna. I think she knows more than we do. You'll take me here in 3 days, won't you? Of course I will. I won't let you go alone. They did get home when it was late at night. It took longer than they'd planned. When they got to bed, they fell into a dreamless sleep. When they woke up in the morning, Leslie called her mother and told her everything. Why didn't you take me with you? I didn't want to worry you. You don't believe any of this anyway. I think I believe it a little more than I used to. So you're going again in 3 days? Yes, we are. Will you take me? Olivia asked. Sorry, Mom, we can't. Why not? Olivia was surprised. Aubrey asked. It's strange, very strange. After breakfast, Benedict reminded his wife to go to the cemetery. They bought a bouquet of flowers, white roses, which her father had often given to his wife, and he liked them particularly. As they approached her father's grave, it seemed to Leslie that he was walking beside her. Sometimes it felt like if she held out her palm, as in her childhood her father would take her hand. She even smiled at the thought. After placing the roses on the grave, Leslie looked at her father's picture with longing and love, and then said, Daddy, it's time for you to leave us. I love you, and I always will. But it's time for you to go. There is another world waiting for you, and we will stay here for now. But know that we will meet again. I won't cry anymore, I promise you. Go in peace. You're the best dad in the world, and you always will be. Goodbye. As soon as she finished speaking, a light breeze came out of nowhere. The leaves of the birch tree that stood near the neighboring grave rustled, and a big May beetle landed on my father's monument. Leslie watched the beetle fly away and mentally said goodbye to her father, wishing him luck. It seemed to her that with this beetle, her father's soul was flying away into the sky. Silly, of course, but she felt a little better. 3 days passed. Leslie and Benedict could hardly wait until it was time to set out again. They already knew where Aubrey lived, so they had no trouble finding her house in that town. When they arrived, she was standing at the gate with a basket in her hands. Leslie got out of the car and said hello. "Have you been waiting long?" "No, I just got out," the woman said calmly, as if she knew exactly when they would arrive. But neither Leslie nor Benedict were surprised. A few hours later, they drove up to the cemetery where Elizabeth and Anna were buried. "You stay in the car. You're heavy," Aubrey said to Leslie. "You stay with her." Turned to Benedict. "But how will you find the right place?" He wondered. "Why look for it? She herself is standing there waiting," the woman said calmly, and walked with a confident gait to where she thought she should go. "What do you think she will do?" Leslie asked her husband when Aubrey was out of sight. "I have no idea, but I don't really want to follow her. It's kind of creepy out here." "It's always creepy in a cemetery." Agreed. They had been in the car for over an hour when Aubrey finally returned, but she looked worried. "Is everything all right?" the couple asked in unison. "I'm not sure. She's restless. I hope everything worked out, but we have to make sure." "And how?" Without understanding anything, asked Leslie. "I know how. Come to my place. I'll explain everything." Without asking any more questions, they got into the car and drove back to Aubrey's house. It was actually hard to keep quiet and not ask anything, but why they were both afraid they wouldn't like the answers. Suddenly Aubrey started talking on her own. She didn't even love him. Just one night, but she loved her daughter. She loved her daughter very much. She had a resentment for her daughter. It's bigger than her own resentment. "I hope she'll let it go." "And if she doesn't?" Benedict asked, looking at his wife's frightened face. "And if she doesn't, we'll keep going to her until she forgives." When they arrived at Aubrey's house, she asked Benedict to sit in the car and took Leslie with her. "Don't worry," all she said was, "I won't hurt her." When she entered the house, she rummaged on one of the shelves, found a vial, poured a few drops into a mug of water, and handed it to Leslie. "Drink. Drink." The girl looked at her warily, but drank every drop, feeling heavy in her head and body. Aubrey took her hand and led her to an old sofa, laid her head on her lap and stroked her hair, saying, "Now you will fall asleep. You will dream of that now. Don't be afraid. Ask her for forgiveness. She'll be angry, but you'll smile at her. Tell her you're sorry you didn't recognize Elizabeth." That Leslie heard nothing more. She fell into a deep sleep. Just as Aubrey had said, Anna appeared in the dream, but she seemed much older than in the photo. She was holding a teddy bear, apparently her daughter's toy. Her eyes were so angry, so hurt. She was whispering to herself, but the girl couldn't make out her words. She tried to say something to her, but it was as if Anna didn't hear her, as suddenly everything disappeared. Leslie woke up trying to understand what had happened. "What did you see?" Aubrey asked calmly, continuing to stroke her hair. Apparently, she'd been stroking her while she slept. "I saw Anna." "Did you apologize?" "I tried, but it was like she didn't hear me. She just whispered something." "What did she whisper?" "I couldn't make it out." "Were there animals or birds in the dream? Live ones?" "No." "Not alive?" Aubrey was surprised. "There was a toy, a teddy bear. She was hugging him all the time." "You remember what he looks like? Can you track him down? Not to buy a new one, but to find the old one? He knows all the secrets." "Where would I find him?" "He's at home with them." "She didn't tell me everything. There's another secret. We have to find out." Leslie went back to her husband, got in the car, and told him everything. He was just as surprised, but only asked, "Are we going to break down the door?" Leslie and Benedict drove back to that town. It was already dark outside, but they did not give up hope. They didn't knock on Anna's apartment anymore. They went straight to her neighbor. From her, they learned that Anna had bequeathed her apartment to the local church, which helped her raise money for her daughter's treatment. It had not been sold yet. They had not been sold yet. They had not found buyers. "Do you know how to find these churchmen?" Benedict asked. "Why should I not know? I do. You go to the church in the morning, and there you will find them." Alice, as her name was, answered with a grin. "Oh, yes. You could have guessed it yourself." He smiled. "Do you know if there are any hotels in town? We'll ask the navigator. Thank you very much for your help." They left, and then found a hotel for the night in the base and went there. In the morning, they went to church. They sought out a woman named Diana, whom Alice had advised them to go to, and asked her about everything. She looked wary as she listened. "So you didn't come here to fight for an apartment? You only want a teddy bear?" she wondered. "Yes, just him." "Do you know if he's still in the apartment?" "No, we took all the things out of it just yesterday. There were buyers." "Where'd the stuff go?" "Clothes were given to the poor, but the toys—" "I'll go and ask. You wait." Diana returned a few minutes later, but she looked puzzled. There was only one toy, but there were a lot of books and things were taken to the orphanage. It's on the outskirts of town. Only that bear was probably already given to the children. "What will you take from the orphans?" Benedict and Leslie just looked at each other. They both realized that there were more important things at stake than a child's resentment. When they left the church, Benedict thought of something. "Why don't we buy some other toys and swap?" he suggested. "Exactly. I wouldn't have thought of that. You are a head with two ears," she smiled. On the way, they stopped at a children's store, picked up a lot of toys for all tastes and ages, filled the trunk, and then went to the orphanage, trying to imagine the scene in their heads, how they would offer the workers of that institution to exchange an old teddy bear for a mountain of other toys. They both became a little ashamed, but they could not think of anything better. When they found out that people came with gifts for orphans, they were easily allowed inside. Mady, one of the teachers, met them. Hearing the unusual request of the couple, she raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Mishka, from the church? They bring us toys every day. I don't even know what he looks like." "I know," Leslie replied. "Just show me the toys. I'll find him." "Well, okay, but you are very strange people," Mady said cautiously and led them into the playroom. When they saw the new toys, the children ran to them. They started looking at them, opening the boxes, fussing and cheering. And only one boy about 10 years old sat in the corner and did not want to join in the fun. He looked sad or hurt. Leslie looked at him so much that she didn't even notice that he was clutching a teddy bear in his hands. "What do we do now?" "It's him," she whispered in her husband's ear, pointing at the boy. "Are you sure?" "Yes, absolutely." Benedict took one of the cars and went to the boy. "Hi, what's your name?" he asked. "Peter," only answered the boy, looking at him with sad eyes. "And I am Benedict." "Hello, Benedict. Don't you want to see the new toys? Will you come with me?" "No, I don't want to. I already have," said the boy, and pressed the teddy bear even tighter in his chest. "But there are lots of others." "I said I don't want to," little Peter replied resentfully. Leslie watched them from the side, trying to understand what was wrong with this boy. And suddenly she realized he looked a lot like her brother Alex at that age. Just the same face. What a coincidence. She walked over to Mady and quietly asked, "Who's that boy?" "Name's Peter. Last name's Stone." "Stone." Leslie was surprised. "Yes," the woman grinned. "We like to make up unusual names for children, connected somehow with their past." "What does his last name have to do with his past?" "I'm not sure. I've only worked here for 2 years, but the last teacher who quit a year ago said that I think his mother's name was Elizabeth. That's why the last name was Stone." Is there any way to find out Elizabeth's last name? I don't think so. All the documents are classified. They can't be accessed. Not even you. Leslie asked with a hint. We can be very grateful, if you know what I mean. Maddie looked at her suspiciously. Why do you want all this? I'm not sure, but I think this boy might be my nephew. The teacher slammed her eyes shut in surprise. I thought you were here for a toy. I thought so too, but now I'm not so sure. So you'll help me? Only on one condition. Squinted her eyes and answered the woman. On what condition? If it turns out to be your nephew, then you take him with you. I'll help you with the paperwork. It's easier for relatives to take children than strangers. Leslie never thought their trip would end up like this. She even forgot to consult with her husband and just answered right away. I'm in. Maddie asked her colleague to look after the children, and she went somewhere else. Taking advantage of her absence, Leslie called her husband and told him everything. He was very surprised when he found out. Do you want to take him away? Benedict, I know it's a bit much, but what if it's true? Leslie, it's not a toy. It's a live baby. You realize that, don't you? What's his name? Benedict sighed, realizing that he was about to make things worse, but answered, His name is Peter. And why is his name exactly like that? Leslie bit her lip nervously. Could Elizabeth really give the child to the orphanage and named him like his father? But if that was really the case, then how could she leave this boy here? He was her own blood. And then it hit her. That's why they were here. When Anna had cursed Peter and his family, she hadn't known she had a grandson, had she? Or had she? But that was why she had cursed him. Or did she know, but that's why she cursed? There were so many unanswered questions. Leslie, on impulse, walked over to little Peter and squatted down beside him. Up close, he looked even more like her little brother. Hi. Are you Peter? Hi. Do you want my teddy bear too? I'm not giving it back. No, I don't want your teddy bear. I want... She didn't get to finish the you part when Maddie called out to her. Leslie got up and went straight to her. Did you recognize the last name? The girl asked hopefully. Let's go into the other room, the teacher suggested, and the couple obediently followed her. When they were alone with them, the woman asked, How do I know that you will not deceive me? What do you mean? Surprised Leslie. Well, for example, I will name the last name, and you just say that it is not her and go away. And you will get the information. Benedict was not confused. Give me a piece of paper. I'll write Elizabeth's surname on it. You say it, and I'll immediately turn over the sheet. If the last names are the same, we'll take Peter with us. Take him with us, his wife asked in hope and surprise. We will, he answered only. Took the paper from Maddie's hands and wrote Elizabeth's name, then folded it in half. Now it's your turn. Maddie looked at both of them suspiciously. They were looking more and more like bogeymen to her, but she had nothing to lose. Walker, she said loudly, and snatched the paper from his hands, read what was written on it, and smiled. That's wonderful. So now our Kolenka will have parents. Benedict and Leslie looked at each other. They saw mixed emotions in each other's eyes. Neither of them would have thought that they would not return home alone. Of course, they wanted to break Anna's curse, but they had no idea it would end up like this. On the other hand, how could one abandon a child who was a blood relative? Yeah, some people would just walk on by and not look back, but not these two. Leslie looked at her husband with gratitude and hope. Benedict looked at her with tenderness and a little fear. He didn't think he would become a father before his wife gave birth, but he was morally prepared for it. Well, or at least he hoped that they would manage. So now Kolenka will have parents, Leslie repeated after her, and then, without asking permission, returned to the room where the children were playing. She approached the boy again and said that phrase in full. Peter, I don't want your teddy bear. I want you. Do you want to play with me? I'm not a toy, the boy remarked. I want to be your mommy. Do you want to be? Suddenly the boy's sad eyes shone with such hope and joy that Leslie could not hold back her emotions, and tears ran down her cheeks. "Will you be my mom?" he asked. "Yes. May I?" "Sure," he said, and stood up and hugged her, and the same teddy bear stuck between them. Of course, they both realized that all this adoption stuff is not done so quickly, but it turned out that if the caretakers of the orphanage are interested in giving the child to a family, the paperwork can be done much faster than usual. Just in case, the couple called the workplace and warned that they were taking a little vacation at their own expense. Leslie was let go without problems, but Benedict had to listen to the unhappy muttering of his boss. But he was not surprised because one day off turned into a week of leave at his own expense. Usually adoption takes many days, but let's not forget that this is a fictional story, okay? Anyway, the next day the boy left for his new life with his new parents. Making himself comfortable in the newly bought baby seat, Peter looked at his father's car in surprise. He had never seen one like it before. Had he ever seen one before? He couldn't remember. He had taken Bear with him. Bear, by the way, looked as good as new. It had been gift-wrapped in Anna's apartment all this time. No one had ever played with it. "Are we going home?" the boy asked hopefully. "We have to stop at one more place first," replied Leslie with a smile. "But then yes, we will go home." Benedict started the car, typed Aubrey's address into the navigator, and stepped on the gas. A few hours later, they were already pulling up to her house. Aubrey came out to greet them a second later, as if she could smell them. When she saw the kid get out of the car, she smiled. "Found it." "You knew?" Leslie was surprised. "Sure did," Aubrey said, with a satisfied look on her face. "Did you get the teddy bear?" Peter took it out of the car and looked at the strange woman in surprise. "Why do you all want my teddy bear so badly?" he asked. "We're giving it to your grandmother," replied Aubrey. "I have a grandmother?" "Not anymore, but she really needs that teddy bear. Come on, get back in the car, you'll understand soon enough." And they drove back to the cemetery. Aubrey again forbade Leslie to go with her to the grave, but this time she took her husband and her newfound son with her. Benedict was surprised, but followed her nonetheless. When they reached the spot where the mother and daughter were buried, Aubrey stopped and asked Kolenka for a teddy bear. "Your grandmother didn't know about you when she said something. Would you please put the teddy bear on her grave? On the one with the wreath of red flowers, and ask for forgiveness, okay?" "For what?" "No reason. Say, Grandma, I'm sorry, and then put the bear on the wreath." "Can you do that?" Peter shrugged his shoulders. He didn't understand why it was necessary, but he did exactly as the strange woman asked him. He wasn't scared, but rather curious about what it was all for, but he didn't ask questions. He wanted to go to his new home as soon as possible. "Now you go," Aubrey asked. "I'll catch up with you soon." Benedict picked up his son and put him on his shoulders. Peter laughed and clung to his neck to keep him from falling. "Careful, you'll strangle him," Benedict asked cheerfully, and the boy loosened his grip. They walked back to the car. Leslie looked at them both and still couldn't believe this was really happening. But she was glad. After 10 minutes or a little more, Aubrey came back. This time she was smiling. "It's all good now. You can go home," she said with relief. "Really?" Leslie was happy. "Really? And how can we thank you?" Benedict asked. "Would you fix my roof?" suggested Aubrey. "That's easy," he agreed. "I'll send the workmen and materials to you tomorrow. I just need to choose what you want to put on it." "Yeah, I thought it was just a patch job." "No, if I'm going to do it, I want it done right just like you," he insisted. "Well, then I'd like shingles. These roofs look so beautiful. And it will be red," agreed Benedict. "What is the delay? We passed a store with building materials. Let's stop by. You can choose your own shade of red." "There's plenty of them," Aubrey agreed. They got in the car and drove to the store. Looking at the samples, she pointed to one of them without hesitation. The color of ripe strawberries. So beautiful and bright. "I want that one," she said. Benedict went to the salesman and arranged everything. He said that tomorrow the guys would come to him after they had measured the roof and realized how much material was needed. He asked them to make sure they didn't get the shade wrong. Then they all drove to her house together. Aubrey suggested they have tea and pancakes for the road and feed their son because it was a long way to go. When they had eaten and drunk, Leslie went up to the lady of the house and asked, "Aubrey, can I ask you a question?" Aubrey gestured for her to step aside so Peter wouldn't hear. They went outside together and sat on a bench behind the fence. It was a complicated story, but I didn't understand it all. Immediately began to answer the woman, realizing what the girl wanted to know. "Can you tell me what you understood?" Aubrey told what she had learned about the story of the boy, his grandmother and his mother. A confusing story, but at least it explained something. It happened on the very last day of the mother and daughter's life. Excited, Anna came to the hospital to Elizaveta in the morning. There was such hope shining in her eyes. "My daughter, everything will be all right. Soon we will have money. You'll get a transplant." "I found the money," her mom told her happily. "You found the money? But where?" Elizabeth was surprised. She had given up hope that she would survive. She had resigned herself to the fact that she was living out her last days in this world. "I called your father. He said he would find the money." "Who?" My daughter frowned. "Peter, your father." "Mom, where did you get his number?" "We still know each other. I made inquiries and tracked him down." "But why?" "I won't accept his help. He's a traitor. He abandoned us." Elizabeth was angry. Her mother had told her all her life that her father had left them and did not want to take part in her daughter's life. She'd told her a lot of lies to avoid sharing her love, but instead she'd grown to hate all the men in the world. No, Elizabeth didn't lash out at them like a fierce beast, but in her heart she considered them all traitors and liars. It was difficult for her to build a long-term relationship with someone. She was always waiting to be stabbed in the back. "Daughter, I realize your father has been away all these years, but now he wants to help you." "No, Mom, that's out of the question. If he didn't need me before, I don't need his handouts now. I've already signed the DNR. The matter is closed. I don't want to spend the rest of my life thinking he gave me money." "But you'll live," her mother tried to convince her. "Isn't that enough?" "It's not enough, Mom. You said yourself that he wouldn't even look at me. He threw us out of his life like garbage." "Elizabeth, my daughter, I'm sorry, but I haven't been completely honest with you. He didn't abandon us. At least he didn't want to leave you." "What?" Elizabeth's eyes widened in surprise. "I was the one who took you and left. I told him to stay out of our lives. I didn't want to share you with him. We didn't love each other. I wanted you all to myself. Forgive me, please, but daughter, you must accept your father's help. You have to live. He wanted to help you, to be a part of your life. I didn't let him." Anna confessed for the first time in her life. "What?" Elizabeth asked with horror, looking at her mother. "What have you done?" "Elizabeth, this is such a chance." "Mother, that's not what I mean. Why did you lie to me? Do you even know what I did myself, being sure that my father didn't need me?" "Mom, how could you?" Anna didn't know what her daughter was talking about. They had secrets from each other, as it turned out. "Elizabeth, what could you have done? You're the most..." "Mom, I gave the baby to an orphanage. I didn't want to raise a boy. I was so convinced that all men are liars that I abandoned him." "What?" Anna flapped her eyes in surprise, trying to figure out if it was true or not. "And where is he now? Do I have a grandson?" "No, Mommy, you don't have a grandson," replied her daughter angrily. "He may not even be alive anymore because I abandoned him. I just gave birth to him and left him in the hospital." "But why did you abandon him? Why did you give birth at all?" The mother didn't understand. Anna knew nothing about the birth of the child. The mother began to guess that it happened when she went to work in another city for a year and left her daughter alone. When she returned, the very same teddy bear appeared in their house. It was just lying on the windowsill in a bag. Elizabeth said that it was given to her as a gift, but it turns out that she actually bought it for her daughter, as she hoped. But when she found out that a son was born, she gave it up. But how can that be? I had hoped to the last moment that it would be a girl. Elizabeth almost screamed. Mom, I abandoned my son because of your lies. You lied to me for so many years and convinced me that my father didn't need me. How could you? There was such hatred in her gaze that Anna was frightened. Elizabeth should not be nervous at all. She was so upset by her mother's revelation that she became emotional, began to choke, and then suddenly fell on the bed dead. Daughter, daughter, daughter. Her mother was rubbing her. The doctor, call the doctor. Nurses came running into the room, but the refusal to resuscitate prevented them from doing anything. Elizabeth didn't want to be brought back again. It had happened so many times before. She was tired, lost all hope, realizing that they couldn't afford the surgery, that they might not be able to find a donor. She was desperate when she signed that paper, even though she thought she was doing the right thing. Anna left the hospital so distraught. Thoughts in her head were jumbled. The mind seemed to be foggy. She was grieving and angry at the same time. In the evening, unable to deal with her emotions, she called Peter in anger and cursed him, not thinking that she was condemning not only his children and grandchildren, but her own as well. She had committed the worst sin of all. She just wanted to end her torment, so she said goodbye to her life. Did she know that her curse would have such power? It is unlikely that anyone can answer that question, but it happened the way it happened. In general terms, Aubrey tried to explain everything to Leslie. She didn't seem to understand everything, but at least she understood something. And how do you understand a mother who lied to her daughter her whole life? How to understand Elizabeth, who refused to give up the child only because of his sex? How do you make sense of it all? One thing Leslie knew for sure was that it was good that they took the boy with them. Of course, he was unlikely to forget the first 10 years of his life, but now at least he would live in a loving family. After saying goodbye to Aubrey, the parents and their son went to their home. They lived in a 2-room apartment for which they still paid the mortgage, but there was not much left. Benedict had bought it before his marriage, when he had planned to start a family. The bedroom had been given to Peter and the living room had been turned into his parents' room. How happy he was when they went to the store together and picked out the new furniture he wanted. A few days later, when all the rearrangements in their house were completed, Leslie invited her mother to visit. Of course, she guessed that Olivia would not be very happy and, most likely, would not understand why they did it that way, but she didn't care. Leslie herself didn't care that Peter was her sister's son by another woman. He was her blood nephew, and now her son. "Mommy, come and visit right away," she said, calling her mother first thing in the morning. "Maybe you'd better come to my place," Olivia suggested. "No, we need you to come to us. We have a surprise for you," her daughter urged. "A nice one, I hope. I'll tell you one thing for sure, it's a surprise." Olivia arrived a couple hours later. She didn't have any plans for the day, but her daughter had managed to intrigue her. When Leslie saw her cab pull up, she ran outside, wanting to prepare her mother for what she was about to see. They sat on a bench near the entrance for half an hour, while her daughter told her about their adventures. Mom listened and could not believe it, and when a little boy appeared in the story, she was especially surprised. "Leslie, you what? You took him?" "Yes, we adopted him. And before you get all indignant, I wasn't going to. I want to meet him. Mom asked me to." "Then let's go," Leslie suggested more cheerfully. They entered their apartment together. Benedict and Peter were in the nursery building some kind of constructor. Olivia entered the room almost silently and looked at the boy curiously, then came closer and sat down on the floor beside him. "Hi," she said softly and touched him with a finger as if she were trying to see if he was real or not. "It tickles." Peter smiled and looked at her. "Hi, who are you?" "I'm your grandmother, My name is Olivia. I do have a grandmother, the boy said excitedly, stood up and hugged her around the neck. Hi, Grandma. Olivia smiled, hugged him too, and then walked over to her daughter. He has Grandpa's eyes. Did you notice? No, he looks like Alex. Leslie smiled. Who do you think Alex looks like? That's true. Alex has always looked like his dad. Anyway, now we have Peter back in the family. You don't mind, do you? How could I mind? He's your son now, Grandma replied fondly now. He's so small, so thin. And you can't tell that he's already 10. It's all right, we'll fatten him up. He'll grow up. Leslie smiled and kissed her son on the top of his head. From that day on, all the misfortunes in the Kitov family stopped. A few months later, Leslie gave birth to a healthy baby girl, giving Kolenka a real sister. Her brother Alex's wife got pregnant again, and Paul fully recovered from the accident. Life was back on track, and everyone lived happily ever after.